Welcome to another broadcast. So good to have you guys here today. It's May the 28th, 2025. I hope you guys had a wonderful day. And we are in the final week of May of 2025. Before you know, we'll be in June, y'all. All right. So today we're going to have a it's going to be one of those broadcasts, I'm going to need you to put your caps on, your thinking caps on this one. All right. We'll get in more to it, but let's see what else is going on. Just the world. The world is the world. A lot of other things going on, but this right here, what we're going to talk about tonight is it's just continuing on what we've been talking about as far as, addressing these issues that we've been talking about for a long time as black folks. But a lot of this we're finding out, we've been looking at it, we've been avoiding a lot of things, and that's kind of what we're going to get into. All right, we give it about another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll get started, okay? In the meantime, you know what I'm going to say. If you haven't been by, make sure you check out our website, sambatree.com. Health and wellness needs, there you go. Make sure you check it out. sambatree.com, make sure you check it out. All kinds of wonderful things there, pertaining to your health and wellness, from seasonings to powders to bitters, oils. I mean, we got it all there. So make sure you check it out there, and there you go. So yeah, check that out. And just going to tease. I'm working on some things right now. Almost finished. I'll tell you about that in a moment. You can also buy things via bulk. You can do bulk buys as well. Let's see what else we got here. We also have Samba University, of course, our ChatGPT course already. All you got to do is click and download it. We have our AI artwork course. It's available. All you got to do is click and download it. Same thing with our big black book of AI prompts. All you got to do is click and download that as well. And we are rolling here with no signs of stopping. All right, let's do another 10 seconds, and then we'll get started. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. We got Peace and Mind Counseling. We got Yvette Riviera in the house, and Team Riviera. I tried to roll it, but I didn't. I failed, didn't I? Anyway. Team Truth in the house, and everybody else coming in. Good to see you guys. Welcome. I hope you guys, like I said, had a great day, and we're gonna have a great week, aren't we? Well, anyway, so busy day, another day of just handling stuff. Almost through it, man. I tell you, it's some days I've been looking at, I'll tell you this, I've been looking at lately, I have always, as a child, and I would say probably many men can relate to this, boys can relate to this, I always loved trains. And lately, I have been looking at these train videos. It's like Japanese people, they go and they just get on different luxury trains throughout the world, and they don't say anything. They just have like subtitles. That's it. There's no talking or anything like that. They're just riding on these trains, and you just get the full experience without you actually being there, and you just see what these nice trains are really like. And she said, just keep practicing rolling those R's. Yeah, I know, I'm gonna get it. And so I've been looking at these train videos, like the luxury train videos. I'm sorry, Japan, they got most of the world beat on that when it comes to these trains, man. They got most of the world beat on that. And United States, all we have is Amtrak, and Amtrak. I mean, there's really no comparison. There really is no comparison. But just to see, these nice rooms, cabins, and stuff like that, and it's just quiet. They don't even add music to the videos. It's just you're in there. Now, the only thing, like I said, I would love to do that. I would absolutely love to be on one of those trains, but it will take me a minute for the food stuff. It would take me a minute to get adjusted to that, because I can't do the raw meat. I can't eat raw fish. I'm not going to eat raw fish. I'm not going to eat raw beef. No, I said, listen, I don't want to cause any trouble. I want everybody to have a good time, but can you just make sure the red is gone? Okay. Can you at least make sure that the fish, you don't even have to fry it. Just cook it all the way through. If you could just do that. And when it comes to my eggs, I rarely, every now and then I'll eat eggs. I don't do the raw eggs, I don't, no. That just makes my skin crawl when I think of that. Everybody's got their own thing, right? Everybody's got their own thing. But that's just, that would be, it would take me a minute to get over that. It would take me a minute to get over that. If anything, I would just bag my lunch and go there. But the other stuff is, I just looking out those windows and just seeing those different landscapes and all that. Oh, it's so beautiful. And that has been the thing that I'll watch it a little while. Next thing you know, I'm asleep. And that's been my thing, my peace. How we always talk about protect your peace. That's one of the ways I do it. I'm just be watching these train videos, man. That's me. And I like travel videos anyway, but I've been lately on the train ones because ain't nobody talking. It's just like, Anyway, all right. So today what we're going to talk about is, if you notice on the thumbnail, you saw, there was different images on there of different young men. And the common thread with all of their stories is that they self-deleted. Okay. If you say the other word, they'll flag you, and they might even flag this video anyway. But I will say this, and I'll be saying this throughout the video that we're doing now, is that if you or someone is contemplating taking that path, I would strongly encourage you to seek help immediately. It's not something to play around with. This is all part of us learning to listen to one another. People who are on that path, trust me, it's not, a lot of times it's not obvious. A lot of times it just, next thing you know, they're gone. I mean, when you listen to a lot of the families that are left behind, they'll typically will say, well, this can't be this. No, I think something else happened. He would never do anything like that. And it takes a little bit of time, and then you start seeing patterns. You start seeing some certain things that begin to add up. And this is just a part of a much longer conversation that we've been having on this platform as it pertains to the importance of us focusing on our health and our mental health specifically. And so, like I said, on this channel, what we try to do is we'll talk about, some of these latest stories and stuff that's going on out here. But at the same time, I like to connect these stories to, okay, what is it? What do we need? What do we do with this? Instead of just hearing about, here's another person, here's another mayor that's acting crazy. Here's another person. Here's another cop that beat somebody's brains out. And then you just tune out after that. That's it. There's nothing at all. We're at an age right now. We're at a time right now where we have to be very careful, and we have to be very mindful of the media that we consume, because it's either going to benefit you, is either going to move you forward, or it's going to move you backwards, or keep you in, or we can also add, keep you in the state that you're in right now. Okay. Staying in the state that you're in right now may not necessarily be bad, but for a lot of people, it is not a good thing. And so we have to be very careful. And I would say this as content creators, especially, I have to take a lot of responsibility on what I do here to make sure that I'm always trying to connect it to something. Okay, what do we do with this now? You understand? As opposed to, like I said, just dumping all of this stuff out here that's, it's bad news, right? But what do we do with that? Can we learn from that? Should we learn from it? Those kind of things. And so it's very imperative right now. And as we've been learning on this platform, we've been talking about the impact that too much media consumption can do, particularly if it's negative, what it can do to the brain. It literally will reshape your brain, and we want to make sure that it's not bad news that's reshaping our brain, but it's also positive things. We need positive things that's going to point us in the right direction so that we're not repeating the bad news, right? So that's what we really try to make that effort here on this platform when talking about stuff. It's very easy to jump on here, and every time I hear about the latest shooting or this, that, or whatever, I can jump on real quick and get on, and I mean, people are making money off of that. The latest, whoever said something crazy, I could did you hear this on what happened in the Diddy trial? Let me get on a video real quick and talk about that. Did you hear about this? It'll be real easy to do that, or not. I choose not to, because that ain't really helping anybody. But anyway, on this topic of, why it is important for us to really pay attention in this day and age as it pertains to our health. I keep saying is that you are your own primary health care provider. I keep saying that over and over again. You're going to have to take that serious. I'm not saying that you should not visit any doctors. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that you are the first line of defense when it comes to your health. Not immediately, I got a headache, let me call Dr. So-and-so and get some pills. No, that is not the way to do it. You got to know how to read the signs in your own body and know how to interpret those things. And what exactly is your body telling you when you get that headache all of a sudden? Is it because of some type of stress, or is it something that your body is trying to warn you that maybe you're sleeping a wrong way or whatever, right? We have to learn those things, and it takes time. And so as we've been talking about on this platform for a long time, things that we've gotten penalized for along with other platforms as well, this recent, event that took place some years ago, well, the powers that shouldn't be have made it very clear on their intentions on what they are wanting to do with that. And people like Bill Gates have said many things publicly. There's a Jewish guy based out of Israel. He has been very clear about, this whole idea of population control, them telling us over and over again, we're going to have to reduce the amount of people on the earth because we're running out of space and we're running out of food and all of that, which is a complete lie. All you got to do is look at a map and you'll see that although our main centers like cities are overpopulated, outside of that, once you get out of the cities, it dies down. There's a lot of open space just here in America, for example. There's a lot of open space out here, and in other countries as well. So no, the earth isn't suffering from any kind of overpopulation, and so, but they've been using that as a catalyst to push certain, I have to talk top level here, to push certain agendas to cull the sheep, if you know what I mean, right? And it's been very clear on the primary targets of that, and that is elderly, or who would be considered older people. And let me give you an example of exactly what I'm talking about here. Let's go right here. I don't know if you guys caught this. BlackRock is suing United Health for giving too much care to patients after CEO was murdered. And in the article, what they're basically saying is exactly what's said in the title, is that what's been happening is, because BlackRock, they own, 10% ownership of United Healthcare. And so United Healthcare, they have, senior care homes, nursing homes, whatever you want to call it. And, these older people get sick from time to time, where it goes beyond the scope of what that facility can handle. So usually what will happen is they'll get on the phone or whatever, and they will dispatch, ambulance to come to take these precious people to the hospital so that they can get the care that they need. Well, BlackRock doesn't like that, because they're saying, wait a minute, you're spending far too much money on this. You're spending far too much money, and that is not meeting our bottom line. You're not meeting our bottom line. So we need you to kind of chill on that a little bit, because, that's too much. You're doing way too much for these older people. Now, what quote unquote civilization would come to that conclusion that we're doing too much for our older people? What civil is that's civil? Is that civil to have when you're dealing with older people, to have to adopt this mindset that somehow, they're older, just let them die? No, we need to carry them all the way out as far as we can. Period. Because guess what? One day that's going to be you too. The Guardian, I mentioned this article, I think recently. Maybe it was on Samba Tree. I did. United Healthcare secretly paid nursing homes to reduce hospital transfers. All right. This article goes more into it. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll just read part of it. A Guardian investigation finds Ensure quietly paid facilities that helped it gain Medicare enrollees and reduce hospitalizations. Whistleblowers allege harm to residents. United Health Group, the nation's largest healthcare conglomerate, has secretly paid nursing homes thousands in bonuses to help slash hospital transfers for ailing residents, part of a series of cost-cutting tactics that has saved the company millions, but at times risk residents' health. And then it goes on there. Let me skip here. In several cases identified by the Guardian, nursing home residents who needed immediate hospital care under the program failed to receive it after interventions from United Healthcare staffers. At least one lived with permanent brain damage following his delayed transfer, according to a confidential nursing home incident log, recordings, and photo evidence. And I mean, I think a lot of us will be amazed and probably shocked at what goes on with a lot of these elderly people in these homes and the type of treatment that they are really getting. And this BlackRock is like the main backer of a lot of these healthcare facilities. Let me show something else to you here. This is a woman who, she has a feeding tube. She doesn't really talk about the condition that she has, but whatever the condition is, she needs a feeding tube, And so let me play this for you here and just let her talk and let her tell her story here. Hold on.
Day 2 of lighting a fire under Blue Cross Blue Shield's butt until they stop trying to starve or bankrupt people who are tube fed. For those of you that are new here, I'm tube fed, so are a lot of other people, and Blue Cross Blue Shield used to cover the formula that you needed to do it. They cover everything else. They cover the machine, they cover the supplies, but not the formula. And how much does the formula cost? Anywhere from $800 to $1,500 a month. Many people who've been tube fed for the last 5-6 years got a notice this year saying that they will no longer cover it, even though it has been covered for the last however many years. Me personally, I can't even get it covered to begin with, and it costs me $1,200 a month. I pay them $300 a month already to cover my shit. I will be making a video every single day until someone contacts us and does something about this, because you're trying to kill us. You're literally trying to kill us. They say it's just food, but on the bottle it says under use of medical supervision only. This is prescribed food by a doctor. And for many of us, there's no other options. It's not that easy to blend your own food. It's not that easy to do it on your own. So yeah, day 2, let's.
So that's just her case there. But there are a lot of other stories out there where people now are starting to become more vocal about different cutbacks that's happening within healthcare. I'm bringing this up as we're making our way to our main topic because, especially as Black folks, you have to take this extremely serious when we talk about healthcare. You have to, and we no longer can adopt the mindset that the government we got to keep banging the doors of the government until they come through for us. You can't think that way anymore. You have to begin to start taking control of your health care starting now. You understand? Because these people, if anything, black folks, we have too long of a history to still in 2025 to still have this mindset that, well, you know, I got Blue Cross Blue Shield and they're going to take care of everything. You're going to have to wake up, you know, and you're going to have to start building your own solutions. Like case in point, there's this whole trend I've noticed on TikTok now where you got a lot of single black women now that are getting on TikTok and they're talking about how they are mad because now they're being pushed off of things like Section 8. When it comes to EBT, they're being pushed off of that program. You know, they still are given enough time to get them stuff together, but it's happening literally right now as we speak, because in the next 2 years, if these people do not have something in place, if they don't have something in place to answer this stuff, we're going to have a significant homeless population basically. And along with other things that go along with it. Too many people, they just think in the here and now, but we're going to have to start thinking beyond that, because if you don't, it's going to just roll up on you just like that. You need to start having those conversations now in your home, you know, talking about, okay, what are some things that, you know, like, for example, maybe you are taking a lot of prescription drugs and stuff like that, you know. Have you taken the time and consulted with a licensed natural practitioner, you know, that can go through your stuff and try to work out a plan for you? You need to be doing those things now. Information, even coming from us, from YouTube, is great, you know, but what we try to do is push people into taking some steps in that direction, because in a minute, you're not going to have those resources. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it's especially true when it comes to here, because the primary place, the first place you need to start when it comes to health and wellness is here. Because if this isn't taken care of first, you're not going to be able to handle all the other stuff when it comes to instructions, following instructions, knowing how to listen to your body and all that, because this is all mixed up. You understand what I'm saying? So this is why when we talking about the brain, I know for some of you it might sound boring or whatever, and it's just like, oh, here we go with the brain. But trust me, what I am seeing and what many of you are seeing out here today, more and more people, it's not there. It's not there. It just isn't. And let me play. I just remembered there was another video that I want to play for you. This doctor here, he's talking about chemotherapy, and I want you to take a listen to what he's saying about this. And there's so many people that will take this stuff and it goes in one ear and it goes out the other ear. But I want you to listen to what this doctor is saying here about chemotherapy. Okay, so let's go ahead and play this video real quick. Okay.
But let me tell you something profound and very simple. Something profound is as follows. When you get chemotherapy, let's talk about cancer, for example. When you get chemotherapy, the first thing it wipes out is your red blood cells. You have anemia. And there's a drug for that called Epogen. The second thing it wipes out is cells called neutrophils that prevent infection. And there's a drug for that called Neupogen. But the most important thing it wipes out is a drug is your NK and T cells, and that's called lymphocytes. It turns out the only thing that protects your body against cancer is your lymphocytes, meaning the NK cells and T cells. So that's why I'm saying what is simple and profound, meaning that we now know that anybody getting chemotherapy, anybody getting radiation, within a day or two, you wipe out the only cells that matter, i.e. the cells that kill cancer. And for 35 years, we've never had a treatment for that. That is where I'm going down the line when we talk about long COVID. Because when you have viral infection, the first thing you wipe out, the virus is smart. It wipes out the T cells and the NK cells. But you know, the irony is that they need Epogen and Neupogen because of what we've done to the patient. We've given them chemotherapy.
Of course.
And at the same time, what we've done to that patient is actually wiped out the cells that matter, the NK and T cells. So my fight for the last 20 years is, here's a surgeon from South Africa, this doctor working on pancreas transplant and talking to oncologists, and says everything we've been doing so far has been wrong. We've actually treated cancer wrongly.
And the amount of people out here, think about it, that are still, this information has been out here. Now, this isn't Dr. Soon. He's not just someone that just, you know, he's a top person in his field, right? But he's also the owner, was it the CEO? He's the executive chairman of the Los Angeles Times. So he's in the media too. But he's also a surgeon. He's a well-respected surgeon. And he's saying this. Now, this is out. This is out here in the open. This is out. You would think something like this would go viral. How many of y'all or someone you know has a relative or a parent or somebody that right now their medical professionals are telling them you need to go through that? Not realizing that that they're being pointed to could be doing more damage to them. And the amount of loved ones over the years that we've lost over just simple things like this. This is the stuff that should be talked about now. This kind of stuff should be going viral, but it's not. You understand? And so this is why we are making a top priority, particularly on this platform, that we have to deal with any way we can to wedge in health and wellness, health and wellness, health and wellness. We're going to do that. Now let's get to our main topic of this evening. Okay. Now you saw on the thumbnails, these different stories here, or these different faces here. All right. Now, just so happens that these individuals on our thumbnail are people who decided to self-delete. Okay. And so, but there's a pattern when you start looking at these patterns. There's two patterns that you'll see. Okay. We're going to cover both of them. That we really need to start paying attention to, because they're not the only ones. There are others that are just like them, but they haven't, pardon the expression, pulled the trigger yet. But there's a lot of people out here right now that are grappling with these things here. But let's take a look at this. Okay. First thing that, and I will point this out at first, and I'm going to show you, and I'll just go ahead and tell you now just how deep this thing goes. The first thing is that, of course, when you look at the patterns behind a lot of these stories, you will find that what they have found is that in many of these cases, there was mental illness. There was some level of mental illness going on with these people. And we're going to go through these stories, okay, just to prove the point. But I'm just giving you just top level right now, okay? There's mental illness there. But this mental illness thing gets a little bit deeper. I was one day thinking about this because in many of those stories that we're going to highlight, they feature individuals that, yes, they self-deleted, but they did it in a way that someone just passing by or someone just scrolling would just assume that, oh, it's just racism. It's just racism, because there's several of these people died by rope, right? I have to talk, I can't be too specific, but you know what I mean. They died by rope. And as soon as those stories hit the online, people immediately jump to conclusions and say, oh, it's the Klan. It's the Klan. I know it's the Klan. The Klan is behind it. They did it because it's just unusual. Let me correct my own self, because I know I've said this. One of the things I used to say, I said, black people don't do that. Black people don't do that. Not on our own. We don't do that kind of stuff. So it has to be, there's some other nefarious, dark things that are going on down there. We don't do that. But boy, I was wrong. The truth of the matter is it does happen. And it does happen a lot. It may not be in that fashion, but it does happen a lot. Now, this is where it gets even deeper or darker. one of the things, and I'm going to get into it here in a moment, but you know what? It's best if I just pull it up here. Let me go ahead and pull something up here for you. Okay, so let's see. This was my theory, because there were a string of these stories that was happening where particularly it was young black men that they were finding lynched, or they were hung. Now, let me be clear here. Everything that I'm saying, I am not tonight. I'm just talking. I'm not saying that this is the silver bullet. This was exactly what happened. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that these are strong possibilities, and there's enough out there to point to that that what I'm about to tell you, it is a strong possibility that this was part of the reason why they chose this. This is how their lives ended. Okay. All right. So what I was thinking was, I said, what if what we're dealing with is, because in this society that we live in today, people like to do things, as you know, on social media, they like to do things to get attention. All right. They like to do things, and sometimes the most very wacky stuff, the most silly stuff, but they also do some things that are really, really off. Right. But you also have people who will decide to check out of here in a fashion that they believe is going to also get a lot of attention. Right. And like I said, again, the stories that we're going to cover tonight, I am not concluding, nor am I saying that that was the reason, because it's impossible for us to know what was going on in the minds of these people at the moment they decided to make this choice. So there's just no way I could say that this is what happened. But is it a possibility? That is what we need to talk about. And I think there's enough there to investigate a little bit. Okay. So let me show you what I came across, and then we'll take breaks here and there, and then we're going to go through some of these stories here. Okay. Okay. So there's some more recent stories too that I'm going to talk about, but these are stories that took place a few years ago. Okay. So I have my prompt there. Where I go right here. Actually, I was down too far here. Hold on. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. All right, so I asked this long question about that. What I'm just, there was a video that popped up on Twitter. No, it was on TikTok. In fact, I should play that for you, because I was debating whether or not if I was even going to talk about this or not, because some people, they just are too sensitive and they'll just run off and come up with these conclusions that I'm not even coming to. All right. I'm not even saying that. So that's why I really need for y'all to pay attention tonight on this. But let me get to this video here first that prompted me to ask such a question. All right. Let's see. That would be here and right here. Okay. So let me play this video clip for you. Here we go. All right, let me play. This was on TikTok.
Listen, man, all my truckers, man, I need y'all to be safe out there. There's been a lot of black men that have their CDLs and that are on the road have been missing a lot lately. So all I'm saying is, man, you guys drive safe, be aware of your surroundings, bro. If you are able to bring something to protect yourself, I advise you to do that. There's been truck drivers all across the United States disappearing, going to truck stops in the middle of nowhere. If you are, try to stay in a lit up area, don't just pull off to some random ass side of the road. Just be aware of your surroundings, guys, and yeah, man, y'all stay safe, man. There's a lot of black truck drivers that's ending up missing in the United States. So I need y'all to be careful out there, man. It's a cruel, cruel world out there, man. They out to get us.
Okay. So before you comment, don't comment yet. Don't comment. All right. Not yet. Not yet. Let me just get this out first and then you comment. Okay. There's a reason why I'm saying this. So I watched the video, right? And I'm hearing what he's saying, but I also take in everything else that I'm watching too. I said, this dude looked like he just woke up. I don't even know if he's right in the head, right? So I go into the comment section of the video and people are in there talking about, I plead the blood of Jesus. I plead the blood of Jesus. Oh, we're going to pray, y'all. Honey, we need to pray. We need to pray because, yes, that's right. They are after us. And this video just spread like wildfire based off of this man making a claim. And I said, and people were like, well, do you have a link for that? You're saying a lot of black men, a lot of black truck drivers are coming up missing. Okay, where are the reports on that? Where are the reports on that? Where are the reports of that? Well, we don't need the reports because, this country, the way this country operates, stuff be happening and not everything it pops up in the news and not. But where are the reports? So you much rather just go along with any claim that somebody makes versus you actually doing a little bit of due diligence and finding out, okay, is this something that's going on? Is this really a trend right now? Or is this someone that just woke up and decided to get on here and scare thousands and thousands and thousands of black people to death over something that he's just saying? He getting up here, y'all, they just taking, they taking folk out. And so someone actually looked up one of the stories. They were like, okay, let me look this up here. Let me see what, this trend. You can comment now. I just wanted to say that part. Someone actually decided to look up this story to see, hey, is there a trend? Is there someone talking about, is this real? You know what I mean? Because, we need to know if this is a real thing. Let's find out what he talking about. And the only story that people like myself, we were able to find was this one. This was a story that took place last year, and I'm bringing it up on the screen right now. And I want us to go through it, and then we're going to get into the deeper thing on here and that I want us to really pay attention to. This was a story that came back. Some of y'all may remember this. This is some place in North Carolina. I'm just going to read this. This is from the Associated Press. It was reposted on the Trucker. Family of a black trucker found dead with a rope around his neck demand answers. Sheriff says no foul play detected. Henderson, North Carolina. The family of a black man found dead in North Carolina with a rope around his neck under a tree is demanding answers and transparency from authorities who say there were no signs of foul play. The Vance County Sheriff's Office, meanwhile, issued a statement on Wednesday, September the 18th. Again, this was last year, saying an examination by the North Carolina Chief Medical Examiner's Office has determined that there was no defense wounds or signs of physical or sexual assault. Full autopsy results, including a determination on cause of death and toxicology, were still pending. Detectives found 21-year-old, and this is where they're going to get to the details, so pay attention to this. They found 21-year-old Javion McGee dead underneath a tree with a rope around his neck on September the 11th in Henderson, which is 40 miles northeast of Raleigh. According to a statement from the sheriff's office, a 911 caller had reported the body. This is a, body. Lawyers for the McGee families addressed reporters on Wednesday to demand answers after they met earlier in the day with the sheriff and the command staff. This is an absolute tragedy, no matter how you panned out. Okay, we're going to skip on, okay? All right, so let's get to here. We're going to start here because this is what the investigation turned out. Now, mind you, this stories like this, it usually is investigated on the local level and the state level. I don't know if the feds got involved with this one or not, but typically, especially if it's seen as a hate crime, you usually get all three. In this case, we know it was at least 2 out of the 3. All right. And it really depends on if there's enough there to warrant that or not. That's usually what it goes on here. Now, listen, let me be clear here, okay, on who you're listening to tonight. Me, okay, me, the one that's tapping on the phone, on the microphone here. I am not suggesting, and I'm not saying, hey, y'all, listen, racism is over. There's nothing to worry about out there. None of this is racism at all. There's no racism. There aren't no racist people out there. Of course, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. But to automatically pivot to that every time, I think it does more damage too, especially if we're not using our brains to actually look at, okay, what are all the other pieces of evidence that are out there that are known? Are we considering those things as well? Or are we just zip lining our way to it's racism and don't tell me anything else? Because by doing that, I believe we're causing more danger, because we have to start now asking ourselves, is this something that we see in other people? You understand? So anyway, let's go. So the sheriff's office released a detailed timeline on Wednesday of what happened to McGee, who was a commercial truck driver from Illinois who had come to North Carolina after picking up a load of goods in Pennsylvania. He unloaded the truck at Walmart distribution center in Henderson on the afternoon of September the 10th. That evening, now they got all of this on record. McGee is seen on surveillance video buying rope at an area Walmart. So they got him on video buying rope. Right? On his way out from the Walmart parking lot, McGee was seen stepping out of the truck to hand money to a homeless person outside the entrance. Authorities interviewed the homeless person, who said McGee gave them $228. Now, if this is a truck driver, now truck drivers do make a little bag. They make some money there. But typically, you ain't making that much money to be dropping that kind of stuff. All right. I mean, it's still, it's whatever, but it's this part that you got to connect it to. The sheriff's office says that McGee told the homeless person, I don't know how much it is, but if I had more, I would give it to you. So this is a man that just literally reached in his pocket and pulled out $228 and say, hey, listen, if I had more, I'll just empty all of this. That is not a normal thing that people would do. Does it happen? Yes. But the events, when you start piecing all this stuff together, it is telling telling us a different story. Let's continue. He later parked his truck in a dirt lot of a local business. Surveillance on a local business. Surveillance showed him walking alone towards a line of trees with an object in his hand shortly before 7 p.m. before returning to his truck. Later, around 7:30 p.m., surveillance video shows him walking alone back towards the trees. According to the sheriff's office, he is not seen walking back. Authorities received a 911 call reporting his body the next morning around 10 a.m. All right. Investigators said that they found McGee in a seated position with the rope tied tightly around his neck and the other end around a tree branch. The brand of rope was one that was sold by Walmart, and a detective used the packaging to determine that the rope that was purchased by McGee the previous day, according to the sheriff's office. His truck was found unlocked with his wallet and cell phone inside, along with a Walmart receipt for the rope matching the date and time of the surveillance footage. The sheriff's office has obtained warrants seeking to more fully access his phone. McGee's mother, Tyara, hope I'm saying that right, Robinson, told the Associated Press on a phone interview last week that she received a call from an investigator on September 11th that her son was found hanging from a tree that morning, but certain details from the investigators on the circumstance of her son's death concerned Robinson. She said the investigator told her that a recording of McGee going to Walmart to buy a rope on that and the evidence that had been available ultimately pointed to suicide. Still, the family and their lawyers felt that the conclusion might be premature. And then it goes on, and because the family basically, and like a lot of other people that heard this story, even with that evidence, the receipt, him on the video purchasing the rope, they got him on surveillance driving to this lot, they have him on surveillance getting out of his truck, going into the woods, coming back, and then leaving again. This time he has something in his hand, and then next thing you know, you don't see him again. Even with all of that evidence, people still concluded that it had to be some kind of racism. There has to be some kind of foul play that's going on. Now, could there be? Possibly, but that's a hard hill to climb with that amount of evidence if that's the case. So what does that point us to is that there had to be what drove him to that point to do that step by step leading up to his unfortunate demise. What is it? That's what we're talking about. And so there's many cases just like this. I'll point you to another story that came out just very recently where the local officials or whatever, state officials, I think, got involved in this. It was the same thing. These individuals, they found them, basically, they went through the whole scenario, and people are scratching their heads saying, no, there's got to be something. We need to get justice and all of this. And I understand the emotions on it, but we can't overlook what's going on here. So anyway, sister details last conversation she had with 19-year-old twin brothers as officials determined they died by suicide. This is another yet very sad story. This happened down in Georgia. Officials have concluded the investigation into the deaths of 19-year-old twins Qadir and Nazir Lewis, who were found dead at the top of a Georgia mountain, and announced a shift from their preliminary findings when it came to their manner of death. On Wednesday, May the 21st, this just happened, y'all. This just happened. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, see, this is not just a local thing, now it went to the state level, announced that they ruled that both young men died by self-deletion, a change from the agency's initial findings on March the 9th, in which they classified their deaths as a murder self-deletion based on preliminary evidence. The comprehensive investigation indicates that the injuries causing their deaths were self-inflicted, the agency said. The GBI said no further information will be released when contacted by People. This is from People magazine, but it's Associated Press, I think, too. Since Qadir and Nazir's bodies were found by hikers at the top of Bell Mountain in Georgia on March the 8th, family members said they didn't believe that the young men who had planned on taking a birthday cruise in April and dreamed of being entrepreneurs would hurt themselves or each other, CNN reported. My nephews wouldn't do this, the twins' aunt Yasmin Bronner wrote in a GoFundMe page she organized in hopes of hiring an investigator to help with the case. And let's go on here. They wanted so much for their future. They had dreams of starting their very own clothing line. On March the 7th, the day before the siblings were found dead, Nazir was scheduled to fly to Boston to see friends, according to CNN. Officials said that he went to the airport but never boarded the plane. Instead, he returned to his home in Lawrenceville, in Atlanta suburb. What prompted Nazir and Qadir to travel from the hometown to Hiawassee, almost 90 miles away, is unclear. But cellular data, location data, help investigators establish a timeline from the siblings' home to Bell Mountain. Surveillance footage also emerged. So they got this on video, which showed the twins entering a Shell gas station in Lawrenceville, Georgia, about 12 hours before they were discovered deceased. Other evidence that led to their official findings include records that show Nazir purchased ammunition used in the gun, according to GBI. The ammunition was delivered to Nazir's house 2 days before his final trip with his brother. I mean, if this is the evidence they have, it's kind of hard to talk around this one. Additionally, internet history from their phones showed searches on how to load a gun, self-deletion rates in 2024, and other related searches. And so and of course it goes into how the family's like, they just can't believe this. They wouldn't have done this, that kind of thing. Now, and then what happened was, what added a little slight twist to this story, because they said their bodies were found by hikers. Well, one of the hikers foolishly took a picture of it, and I think of the bodies and posted it. So you can't do that. And so this hiker, who happened to be white, he was arrested for that, and rightfully so. And so what was happening in the news, people were posting these twins pictures up along with this hiker that said that he came across it. And they're saying, oh, yep, there you go. It's racism. There you go. It's a white person. We know it. We just know it. It was a white person that did it. That's it. End of discussion. But if you read the rest of the story as we did, what we are discovering here is that no, there was a lot of other things that led up to this, that this thing, it does sound like it was in fact planned, and based on the investigations, that's what they're coming up with. We may not like the answer when we hear that, but based on the investigations that people have been demanding, and rightfully so, this is what they have discovered. They got DNA, all that stuff that they look up and all of that, and this is something, these are two stories here, but let me get into what I wanted to share with you, because all of this that I'm sharing with you, it's definitely all connected to the main point that I want to make. I'm driving home in our broadcast this evening here. Okay, so what I did was I took that story of the trucker and I asked this question here. I did this time. Usually I use ChatGPT, but I did Grok. All right. And for this particular one here. So let's take a look at this here. All right. So like I said, just follow me on this one. All right. We are not saying or suggesting that this is the case on where I'm leading to. We're just simply saying that it is a possibility. So let's take a listen here. Okay, so I said, okay, I'm going to lay out an admittedly very dark possibility. For this one, I need for you to think as a psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst. Let's say first take a look at this story, which is the story of the trucker that I just mentioned to you. This is just one of example out of many where recent stories in the past years of Black individuals being found dead in ways that are reminiscent of the days of Jim Crow. After very close examination by detectives, many times in local, state, and federal levels, many of these stories are ruled as suicides. I have a theory where I believe that at least some of these cases, people who are electing to self-delete themselves like this may be consciously choosing ways where they know they will be talked about afterwards. I know that sounds very dark, y'all, but just follow me on this, okay? Now, I know it's completely near impossible to prove what is going on in the minds of an individual at the time prior to the action. But what I want to know is that is this something that's ever been studied in general? People who intentionally choose to self-delete in manners they believe will gain them maximum memory attention. Let me be clear. I am not assuming that this took place in the news story that I presented. I just want to know if this is a possibility and has it been studied? Is this something that's been studied? And so anyway, here's the answer here. Again, we don't have to read every last detail of it, but we're going to go over this, okay? Your question touches on a profoundly complex and sensitive topic, the motivations behind the individual choosing specific methods of self-deletion that might maximize this type of attention, particularly in ways that evoke a historical cultural resonance. And then it goes on, blah, blah, blah. All right. So has this phenomenon been studied? The idea of individuals selecting self-deletion methods to maximize this type of attention or to make a social, cultural, political statement has been explored in psychiatric and psychological literature. Though not always as a primary focus. Research in this area often falls under the study of self-deletion motivation, method choice, and socio-cultural influence of suicide behavior. And then it goes on. And I'm not going to, like I said, again, I'm not going to go through all of these things here. I just want to hit the main points. Self-deletion as a communicative act. Some studies suggest that self-deletion can serve as a form of communication or protest, where the method or context is chosen to convey a message or to draw attention to an issue. And then they go on and they give some examples there. Let's go on number 2. Method choice and cultural historical resonance. Research on self-deletion methods choice shows that individuals may select methods based on accessibility, cultural familiarity, or symbolic meaning. For instance, studies on copycat self-deletions. Now, that's kind of where we're driving here. Inspired by media coverage or high-profile cases suggest that individuals may mimic methods that have gained public attention, such as hanging or jumping from notable locations, to align their act with a broader narrative. Let's see here. I'm gonna skip over this. Number 3, attention-seeking behavior and self-deletion. Let's see here. Attention-seeking behavior is often studied in context of non-self-deletion self-injury, NSSI, where individuals harm themselves without lethal intent to gain attention, express distress, or elicit care. However, this is distinct from completed self-deletion. Some literature on parasuicide, suicide attempts with low lethality suggests that individuals may engage in acts to communicate distress or to gain attention. And then it goes on and mentions another study on this as well. Psychiatric and psychoanalytic perspectives. Let's see here. They go into some details here. Like I said, I'm just trying to keep this where we're not getting too much into the, a lot of the medical jargon and all that. I'm trying to keep this like where it's keeping people's attention on this, because this is a very important topic here. Bottom line, there is no clear studies on this, but however, the closest it could tie it to is something called the Werther effect. The role of media in shaping self-deletion methods is well documented. The Werther effect describes increased self-deletion rates following media coverage of self-deletions, particularly when the method is sensationalized. This suggests that individuals may be influenced by cultural narratives or media portrayals to choose methods that resonate publicly. And then let me scroll down here. So here's exactly what I'm talking about as an example that I believe it makes somewhat of a case of this, although I am not, and I keep saying this over and over again, I'm not hardline concluding on this, but it is something that we need to take a look at. Okay. Causes of Black individuals found dead in circumstances reminiscent of Jim Crow era violence. And it's given us some examples here, okay, of some cases that some of y'all may remember. Robert Fuller, this was in Palmdale. You remember those two hangings that, Black men that they found they were like, the dates were very close together out in California. Well, this is their stories here. Okay. So Robert Fuller, he was one of them. This is in Palmdale, California. A 24-year-old Black man was found hanging from a tree in a park near Palmdale City Hall on June the 10th. I want you to keep in mind the dates because we're going to come back to this. Authorities initially classified his death as a suicide, citing no evidence of foul play. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reported that Fuller had a history of mental health issues. Okay. Take a note of that. Put a check mark by that. And self-deletion ideation. I can't say that. And the coroner's office later confirmed self-deletion as a cause of death via autopsy. So he had an established history according to what the state or the city, they must have been tracking this dude for a minute. Now I know for some of you, because I'm already seeing the down arrows, this is something that you don't want to think about or talk about because you have embraced the narrative that it's just this and that's it, brother. What are you talking about? How dare you bring, it's gotta be this. It's gotta be the Klan. It's gotta be white folks. It's gotta be that. But what I am telling you is that if you keep thinking like that, you are doing more damage, because the conditions that a lot of these brothers had, there's a lot of people right now, and I would even dare say there are some people that are even listening to me now that have some of these markers, and you better start paying attention to it. We're trying to stop this stuff, but to always pivot to it's something else and it's not us, it's nothing internal, you're not addressing the issue, is what I'm saying. Anyway, let's move on. So quite naturally, you remember the family, they were like, no, he wouldn't do this. He didn't, We think it's something else, blah, 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 so forth and so on. And so, yeah, so there you go. So here's the next one. Malcolm Harsh. I hope I'm saying his name right. This is in May 2020. I'm just going through these, and then we're going to look at the dates, okay? Malcolm Harsh, a 38-year-old black man, was found hanging from a tree near homeless encampment in Victorville, California on May the 31st, 2020, approximately 50 miles from Palmdale. San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department initially suggested self-deletion pending autopsy results. A later investigation, including video evidence showing no third-party involvement, supported the self-deletion ruling. So they have video. They actually have video showing him carrying this stuff out. Through full autopsy details were not widely publicized. And then, of course, the same reaction from the family. And his family, in this case, is that they just could not believe he would do something like this. All right. Dominique Alexander, this is in Bronx, New York. Notice this all takes place within the same year, 2020. But we're going to line up all these dates. OK. Dominique Alexander, a 27-year-old black man, was found hanging from a tree in Fort Tryon Park, Manhattan on June the 9th, 2020. The New York Police Department quickly ruled the death a self-deletion, citing a history of mental health issues and no signs of foul play. The medical examiner report corroborated this, finding no evidence of trauma or struggle. Once again, the family, same thing. They believe that there was, they believe there's something else going on here. It was, whatever, right? And we can understand why that would be the reaction. This is another one that took place. Now, this is going back a year before, which is 2019. A 31-year-old black man was found hanging from a tree in a public park in Portland, Oregon on May the 28th. The police ruled it as a self-deletion, supported by an autopsy showing no signs of foul play. Authorities noted Gully's history of homelessness and mental health challenges. Once again, same reaction. Frederick Jermaine Carter, here's another one here, same thing. 26-year-old black man was found hanging from a tree in a predominantly white neighborhood in Greenwood, Mississippi on December 2010. The LaFleur County Sheriff's Department, along with Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, ruled the death a self-deletion, citing no evidence of foul play and a reported history of mental health issues. All right, and then again, the NAACP got involved, the whole nine. Okay, and it goes on. Okay, there's some other ones here. I asked some other questions, but let's get back here for a moment. Let me bring myself back on the screen here for a second here. And as I can see, some people, they're having a hard time dealing with this. But see, I don't have a hard time dealing with looking at what's the stated facts, because you have to look at that in order to get a fuller picture of what's going on. See, it's one thing. See, we got to move beyond just making fun of people and saying that nigga crazy, to we need to start paying attention. That's the point here. And what I'm saying, combined with the event that took place a few years ago, where people were made to do a certain act, you know what I'm talking about, you better start paying attention to this stuff. And pivoting to just mere racism, the white people did it, they did it, is not solving, or better yet, it's not even trying to address the deeper issues. There are many people out here right now, they may not be thinking about self-deletion, but they are doing some things out here. See, how is it, hold on, how is it that we can do hours and 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 hours of video accusing black women of being crazy, that they must got a few screws loose? You can do video after video after video after video after that. But when we talk about this, now all of a sudden, no, we can't talk about that. It has to be somebody else. It's got to be something else. It's got to be, it's nothing in me. I'm fine. Shoot, I'm good. But we can do videos after video, all these, talking about these black women crazy out here. They losing their mind. These are fools out here. You can't mess with these black women. They crazy. We can talk about that ad nauseum. But when you're dealing with real issues like this, oh, we can't handle that. Now it's somebody else. It's coming from an external force. It's them. We got to come up with a whole Scooby-Doo mystery. The ghost of Jim Crow must have rose from the dead. We just talked about just recently the amount of mass shootings that just took place just this past weekend. And we talked about the mindset of a lot of people who see that as normal. And we went through the details and said, no, this isn't normal. This is what happens in your brain when you start thinking that way. There are deficiencies that are across the board that are real. We're not saying these people are retarded or whatever, and they need to be in a psycho ward. We're not saying that. But these are flags that we got to pay attention to this stuff. Because I'm telling you, over time, it's getting worse. It's going to get worse, period. It's going to. Okay, I'm not trying to be gloom or doom, but I am telling you, based on, and I've even looked this stuff up, you do a 10-year projection, it's not going to get any better. It's not. For a lot of people, it's not. These stories that I just covered here, that's just a few that we know about. But there are many cases here. Listen, there are people. How about this? You remember the story that we did? I did a video a while back about a young lady who I don't know if she had 2 children. I can't remember if she had 1 or 2 children, drove her children. This is a black woman, drove her children to Niagara Falls and jumped over there. Took the child with her and jumped over Niagara Falls. Now, they got it all on video. You don't hear nobody say anything about, it was Jim Crow. It was racism. The Klan must have convinced her and maybe tapped in her brain and made her do. You don't hear none of that story because it's all plain. There was no white person at all. There's no way. There's no factors in there that we can. Anyway, I mean, you would have to, I don't even know what you would have to do to try to wedge in a white face in that one. They got her on video taking her child or children, I can't remember, and jumping over the falls with that. You can't tie that to anything. There are other stories like that as well, where people just do this kind of stuff. But because it wasn't in the South, it doesn't involve a Southern state, it doesn't involve, a dark road in the country, it doesn't involve a white cop, it doesn't involve some redneck somewhere, then we automatically pivot to blaming something else. And what I'm telling you is that thank you. Someone said she had 3 children. Yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that. Because I was like, it wasn't 1. I think it was more than that. She had 3 children. She said 1 escaped. So what I'm saying with these stories is that what I'm showing you, and I'm just revisiting my main point here, is that I think in some of these cases, some of these people, they are so off at that point of wanting to self-delete. There are patterns out there that show in other similar cases where when people choose to remove themselves from this world, they do it in a manner that they believe is going to get a lot of attention. There is a precedence for that. Am I saying that this is in this case here? No. Am I saying this is applicable to any case? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am telling you is that it does happen. People do things like that because they know, they believe, okay, if I'm going to check out, I need to do it in a way that a lot of people are going to talk. Let's go back because I want to show you now. I want to show you something. So we're going to go back to these dates here because I want you to see these dates here. Because you remember I talked about it's a name for this where they call it in the media, they'll say copycat. They'll say copycat self-deletions, but there's a actual medical name for it. I have it up here somewhere. But let me look at these dates here, okay? Because I want to show you these dates here. All right, so let's go Robert Fuller. This is June 20th, or rather this is June the 10th, 2020. All right, let's look at this one. Malcolm Harsh. This took place May the 31st, 2020. So let's start with this one here. So this one, May the 31st, 2020, right? Then it jumps to June the 10th, 2020. Then let's go to this one. Then you got June the 9th, 2020. So it went from May the 31st, and then what? About maybe a week and change later, you had another one. This time, this guy, he's in New York. He decides to end his life the same way. Then the next day, someone else, this time he's in New York. He clearly must have heard about it and decides to end it the same way. He's in California. So go back May the 20th, then June, it goes May in Victorville, California. Then in June, about a week or so later, someone else decides to do it. This time they're in New York. And then the following day, this person, he does this. He decides to do it. This is in California, back in California. These other ones, that's like 2019, 2010, that kind of thing. But what I'm saying is that when we look at social media, for example, you see that a lot of people will look, if they're in a state where their brain is just not, in a state like that, just extreme depression like that. I don't think we fully understand the extent people will take to get that attention. I don't think a lot of people don't realize that. I really don't think so. So, and reason why I want to highlight these examples here is because I want you to see just how far this thing goes if we're not talking about and we're not addressing these issues like we need to be addressing them. You understand? There is nowhere in the world we're done. We have to be done with, honey, just give it to Jesus. We got to be done with that. You need to go get some help. You need to get some professional help. And then, like I said, again, there are many people out here. Here, let me read what my sister said here. Hold on. She said, I lost my cousin to self-deletion 2 years ago. We had no idea he was thinking that way. I almost lost another family member to this 2 months ago. And no, let's stop for a second too. Thank you, sis, for sharing that. No, we're going to stop with your family must have a curse nonsense too. No, if there's a curse, it's a curse that you brought on yourself, meaning that there's just been this generational refusal to pay attention to some of these signs that people are oftentimes giving. But because we live in such a noisy society, that's got social media blasting in our ears all over the place, a lot of times we can't really pay attention. We up here laughing. Look at Robin Williams, for example. People all around him was laughing. Oh, he's a funny guy. And he's just making people laugh all over the place. And he goes home and deletes himself. And then what do people say? Oh, he would never do anything like that. I mean, come on now. Someone had to it had to be the CIA. It had to be the FBI. It had to be this or that or whatever. Now, we're not saying that these organizations out there, they're not involved in stuff that do little weird stuff like that. We're not saying that or suggesting that because there's record of them doing this kind of stuff. But what I'm focused on, let's put them on the table for a second. Okay, can we do that? Can we put the Klan on the table? Can we tell the CIA, MI6, and all these other groups, can we tell them to sit down for a second? Can we talk about just the areas that we know about and we control? Can we talk about that for a second? And how these are things that happen so often in what we call the Black community. We've normalized it. We think it's just normal. Oh, they're just crazy. No, you can't think that way. There's something else that's going on there. Or it must be 5G or whatever. Okay, maybe that is a contributing factor, but still, There are things that we can do, and it starts with us. It starts with us. It starts with the things we eat. It starts with the things we consume on a regular basis. If you are all over and over again consuming this kind of stuff off of social media, where it's got to be something else, it's got to be the devil, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, it's got to be this. You know, someone left a long couple of messages recently. You know, the CIA, you know, they got masks. If I hear one more Negro say that to me, you know, they got masks where they put on, and you know, that ain't us out there. That's somebody else. You know good and doggone well who'll be out there. But we don't want to talk about it. Instead, we make up some other stuff. And we make that the issue instead of dealing with what's really going on in home base. And that's what we try to address here. We don't want more of our people ending up that way. And I'm sure you don't either. But if we're going to address this kind of stuff, we have to be honest enough to start talking about these things openly, also pointing to some solutions. What are some of the solutions? Again, cutting down, talking about this some of this conspiracy nonsense over and over again and making that a priority. Going from that to saying, you know what, I'm gonna cut that down. Instead, I'm gonna fast some of this stuff. I want to hear this for a while. Let me start feeding my mind some positive things. You know, putting together one of the things we're doing at Sabbatry, for example, and we're just about finished. We put it together on paper last night. Now it's just a matter of us putting it on our website. We're putting together. You know how we were these last few broadcasts, we've been talking about these different parts of your brain that are responsible for helping you make these decisions, either good decisions or bad decisions. Well, there's herbs and stuff like that that help heal that. They don't address all of it, because some of it may be, the root of it may be some abuse that's going on in your house, or maybe abuse that happened in your childhood. Well, we can't do anything about that, but there are some things we can do on this end. And so, you know, there are certain herbs that will feed in help feed your amygdala or your prefrontal cortex or some of these other areas in your brain where you always find yourself getting stressed out over the least amount of things, something that's so insignificant, but you find yourself ready to flip out and ready to go off on somebody. When we hear about these stories where we can't even have a birthday party, we can't even have a freaking birthday party anymore unless somebody bringing a whole arsenal of guns. And people getting their heads blown off, and we sitting up here acting like that's normal. That's not normal. That's not the CIA showing up in mass. That's niggas showing up doing that stuff. So what do you have to do? You have to learn to separate yourself from from those types of people. Stop considering those people family. If these people are doing some crazy stuff enough that gets you in prison or to get you hurt, you need to excommunicate yourself from. You need to go away. You need to separate yourself from those people. Period. Stop considering these people family. But what are you talking about, man? They blood. You know, at the end of the day, no, they may be blood, but listen, I don't want to see my blood on the street. Okay, so I need to separate. And how do you do that? We talked about that in detail as well. There are things that you're going to have to go through. Your brain has to go through. I want you to hear me. There's things that your brain literally has to go through. You have to allow it to make those changes so that you are now re-identifying who it is you're supposed to be associated with versus who you're not supposed to be associated with. Do you understand what I'm saying? We did this. I put this document together. Was it yesterday for you guys? This is right here on our community page. It's free of charge. I ain't charging a dime for this, and we're gonna keep right on pushing this kind of stuff out here. It's a short document, but it summarizes what I have been talking about. It's called Understanding Outrage, Asymmetry, How Our Brains React to Outside versus Inside Threats, and How to Keep Those Circuits Flexible. When you start thinking of the things, there are processes. You don't just come to a decision. Your brain, it goes through, there's different compartments that, think of it, your brain is like a factory, and each factory has its own section of employees. Their responsibility is to be on point and to do what needs to be done on that part of your brain. Just think of it like that, for example. When you are low on certain minerals, you're low on certain vitamins, you're low on certain intakes that you're supposed to be getting on a regular basis, like sunlight, fresh air, that kind of stuff, or things that you're supposed to be consuming on a regular basis. What it is like this factory, these different sections of your brain, it's like people ain't showing up for work. So think of it that way. So you got people over on this part of your brain that you're supposed to have a staff of 30 people, but there's only 10 people there. Or over on this part here, you're supposed to have a staff of 50 people, but there's only 5 people there. Or you got this part of your brain that's supposed to be a staff of 100 people, but there's only 1 person that shows up. This is how our brain, a lot of our brains, particularly in this Western culture, is like, because of the food, it's void of a lot of things that we need to be consuming on a regular basis. And you combine that with this overwhelming consumption of social media, what it does, it's these workers that are left behind, these few workers that are left behind, that work, your brain is working understaffed. And so what they do, they just sweep everything together and they just like, man, please, man, let's just do this. Man, let's just do that. I don't care. That's exactly what's happening in your brain. And so what has happened is because this becomes so normalized, when you look at social media, with a lot of black folks, what we're putting out, and I ain't talking about the other people because they're just as bad, but we're talking about black folks tonight, okay? We're talking about us. We're talking about black folks. What we post on social media often reflects what's going on here. So if it's a lot easier for you, the reason why it's so easy for many of you to latch on to stories about, did you hear what the white person say? Did you hear about this? Did you hear, you look at these crazy black women, or look at all these crazy black men. Did you see what he did? Did you say, because our brains, unfortunately, we have normalized this state that we're in, it becomes easier just to go with that. But when I start talking about stuff like this, the things I'm talking, people just, oh, let me check. I can't handle that right now. That's too much for me to think about. What I'm telling you is this, as I'm bringing this to a close, we have to start thinking like this. Remember what I was saying in the beginning, those examples I gave you? You are your first line, you are your primary health physician. You got to keep saying that to yourself over and over again. Because what we're seeing right now, I'm telling you, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse for a lot of people, because they're not taking this seriously. And so you have to start minding the information that you're taking in and making sure you push it. There's some people I look at, like I said, there's one individual I think about all the time. Every time they post stuff, then it's end of the world is crashing and burning, and everybody's going to hell, and judgment all over the place. There's more and more judgment. When you see someone that's always on that all the time, what that tells me is that there's instability in your home. I don't care what you try to present to the world, but what that tells me is that there's instability in your home. Because anybody that's, if you're stable, you're not talking like that all the time. You're not always gloom and doom all the time. If you're stable, you're someone that's going to be talking about other things. Okay, this is how we're going to move forward. Hey, let's talk about this. What are some other things that we're going to move forward? You're always thinking ahead. You're always thinking upward. Do you understand what I'm saying? But what you find, a lot of these folks that are locked in and they're not healed up here, a lot of times because of past trauma or whatever, they always stay in this loop. And what happens is a lot of times people latch on, the people that latch on to that, the reason why it's so easy for a lot of people to latch on to that, because in their own homes, they're dealing with that own stuff. You know how they say misery loves company? Well, you can look at social media right now. You see that all the time. Some of the top people right now are miserable. They're miserable. And you look at these people and you think they have it all together, but they really don't. Well, I'm just listening to them because, they warning us and they letting us know what's going on and all that. No, if you stay on that every time, everything is the last days. Everything is the last days. Everything. You better get out of here before it's too late. These people now, they gonna take you now. You can't be safe and all of this stuff. Anybody that talks like that on a regular basis, it's a reflection of what's going on in the house. And in some cases, it's a reflection of what's going on. If they're married, it's a reflection on in the marriage. That says a lot, because if you're not insecure in your own marriage, it's going to come out in the stuff that you put out all the time. And what's that you're going to be putting out most of the time? Fear, uncertainty, worry, doubt, all of that kind of stuff. And remember what I said earlier? As a content producer, I have to be very careful of the stuff that I put up. You got to be extremely careful of the stuff that you post on these platforms here, because you are talking to people, you will never see their faces. But there are a lot of people out there, I'm telling you, we have dealt with it ourselves, that mentally they are very unstable. Very unstable. And it's something that we must take seriously. These young men, I'm keeping myself together, because even as I was going through those stories, I hate hearing that. I don't like seeing our black men ended up in situations like that. But you have a lot of cases out there where they may not be hanging on a tree right now, but mentally they're hanging on a limb right now. And that's the young men, but you also got young women too that are in those same categories, those same situations. And so we have to start taking this stuff extremely serious, because once you start prioritizing this, what then happens is now you're in a state where now you can start taking care of all of this other stuff in your body. You can start prioritizing everything else. You understand? So I really do hope you got something. I know this was, for some of y'all, this was tough. I know, I get it. But we have to start prioritizing these kind of conversations and what we're talking about here. And you got to start, when you hear these stories, I know a lot of times it's easy to pivot. You can have hundreds and hundreds of black folks shooting up each other all one weekend. Hundreds of people, black folks all over the country, go over and they shooting each other and end up in a hospital. And people won't even bat an eye at that. You have this one case where it involved these twins, for example. All of a sudden now we got to get the NAACP involved. We got to get the CIA. We got to get all this. You prioritize it, because what it really says is that the value that we place on each other is only seen valuable when there's a white person involved. That's how low this thing has sunk. When you got a black life that's been snuffed out by another black person, oh, that's nothing. But if we perceive, or if there is a case where it's a black life that's been snuffed out by a white person, we see that black person all of a sudden is gold. 5 years later, we're still talking about George Floyd. If George Floyd died by the hands of another black person, nobody will even know his name. And you know it, and I know it. That's something off here. When a society or a group of people normalizes death in its own community, something is broken. And what we're addressing here on this platform is this right here. It starts here. And we're just going to use some very practical. We're just starting in the very practical, because if we can get the practical down, then you can start moving on to the more advanced stuff and the things that other things that need to be addressed. Okay. So anyway, that's it. If you have any comments or whatever that you would like to add, please put them in the comments below, and just be respectful and stay on topic, because things like this, I will tell you, if you start getting off in some other stuff, that's unrelated to this, I'm going to have to just block you. Okay. Because I just don't have time I don't have time for that other stuff anymore. I really, really don't. We have to start being honest about this stuff, because I don't want to hear another story like this. But unfortunately, this is the world we lived in. And like I say, combined with the fact that we have, the other thing that took place a few years ago, it's almost a guarantee we're going to see this thing getting a lot worse. Okay. but we can be prepared for it. There are things we can do now to protect ourselves and our family so that we don't end up that way. All right. And that's what we're here for. That's what my wife and I, we've committed ourselves to, and to helping people to make those adjustments so that you're prepared for that kind of stuff. All right. Okay. Well, my light just kind of dimmed out. That's telling me I need to go, but that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. Again, you guys take care, and we will definitely be talking again about these topics and other similar topics in the near future. Okay. But you guys take care, and we'll be talking again soon.